David and Jonna are two natives from Indiana that fell in love with each other at the prime of their lives. While they were both from two different worlds, they were initially willing to give their all into making it work. However, distrust began to cloud Jonna's judgment when her husband started coming home late. But when she realized why he was coming home so late, Jonna was overwhelmed with feelings of guilt and understanding. Greetings, salutations, and welcome to our channel. Today, we are going to cover the wholesome tale of Indiana residents David and Jonna, two individuals that were brave enough to tackle married life in their 20s. Before we dive into the story, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click on that little bell so you won't miss any of our stories, because we have a lot more content planned similar to this. David and Jonna both met back in 2012, and they fell in love almost instantaneously. They were both in their 20s when they met, and about a year later, David found himself proposing to Jonna at a family and friends gathering on Thanksgiving. This was the perfect time for them to enter married life as well, as Jonna was bearing David's child at the time. The timing was on point. The wedding took place after Jonna gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. They both said their vows, and they were happy. Before we dive into the conflict, let's take an in-depth look at David and Jonna, the two protagonists of our story today. David was from a small rural town in Indiana. He grew up as a rather reserved young man from an Amish community. The culture stuck with him so much that he made all his groomsmen wear bow ties to the wedding, as Amish men don't wear ties. This took even Jonna by surprise at the wedding. On the other end, we have Jonna, who was also from a small rural town in Indiana. However, that is the only similar trait she shared with David. At first glance, nobody would guess that Jonna is a resident of a rural town, as she is a self-proclaimed loudmouth who finds it fun to joke around and create awkward tension in her conversations. She claims that it's her superpower. As time passed, she picked up a newfound love towards web and video content creation. She prided herself as an entertainer, and over time, the efforts paid off as people actually loved her channel. Jonna's blog and social media channels quickly grew in audience, and she was commonly addressed by the masses with the nickname The Real Blunt Blonde. Truth be told, the nickname holds up since Jonna proclaims herself to be a stay-at-home slave who won't have any hair by the time they're 30. She has a rather fiery personality, as she says, "People think I'm always joking, but I'm not. I'm genuinely an unpleasant person and hate everyone equally." Strong words, but her audience loves her for the straightforward and brutally honest nature of hers. Since David grew up in a Swiss-German Amish community, modern technology isn't a luxury that David dabbled in, as he focused on learning how to do things the old-fashioned way. This left David and Jonna living two completely different day-to-day lifestyles, with very little in common. One glaring example would be David's preference in cars. David drives a buggy, while Jonna claims to be uncomfortable driving one. Jonna even claims to have almost driven one into a tree once. Another example would be their personalities. Because of his traditional Amish upbringing, David is a generally calm person with a serene mood, while Jonna is a rather explosive personality that is outspoken on the internet daily. While Jonna had an active lifestyle surrounding the internet, David did not understand the internet whatsoever. Regardless of their differences, David and Jonna strongly believed in the fact that opposites attract and love each other. Because of this, they have learned to compromise and live with one another. David learned to adapt with the new technology and live life with Jonna's outgoing lifestyle, while Jonna learned to adapt to living with a husband that lived life the old-fashioned way, knowing that she will have to help him adapt to it all every step of the way. Even with all these differences, Jonna spoke positively of the Amish community, as she said, "All I really knew about Amish community was that they made donuts that would slap your taste buds with happiness you've never experienced before." Blogging has become a rather popular pastime for a lot of people, and it takes a lot to stand out amongst the rest. This speaks true, especially when it comes to blogs kept by stay-at-home moms. However, Jonna's success came from the unlikeliest source. What made Jonna's blog unique amongst the rest was her Amish husband. It was an unforeseen marketing strategy, as the synergy between an internet blogging wife and a traditional old-school husband that grew up without the internet was something that a lot of people looked forward to. Because of this factor alone, her blog got a lot of traction. And as of the time of this video, her Facebook page has over 1.2 million likes. Now, that's a huge audience. Jonna carried many responsibilities on her shoulders as she had to spend time with their young daughter, take care of their house, and also work on her blog, which was a passion project of hers. Jonna lives a rather busy lifestyle with a very tight schedule. She found herself spending most of the time alone since David worked out of the house. Even if these took the form of responsibilities, Jonna genuinely loved spending as much time with her daughter as possible and working on her blog. Now that we have insight as to who David and Jonna are as people, let's take a good look at the conflict. While Jonna spent most of her time staying at home taking care of their young daughter, David spent most of his time working at a nearby RV dealership. His hours were rather long, and this caused him to stay at work pretty late into the night. This didn't come as a surprise to many because of his Amish upbringing. Amish people are known for their resilience when it comes to hard work, after all. However, this left Jonna lonely at home most of the time. And while she did have a lot of company in the form of her many internet followers, it didn't feel the same as the company of her husband that she deeply loved. Jonna clearly missed spending time with him and eventually started to feel very lonely. She even claimed on her blog once that, to quote, "I'm wedded to an industrious man, and I would be dishonest if I alleged that it didn't stress me." As time passed, she even admitted to being angry with David for spending almost all of his time at his job. She started to hate the physical changes that came along with it as well. David's hard work can be clearly seen on his body, as his hands were cracked and he got crow's feet all before the age of 30. However, Jonna wasn't blind or selfish, as she saw the position she was putting David in with her feelings in this. She showed her sense of understanding in one of her posts, as she said, to quote, "He literally can't succeed. If David doesn't work later than usual, he will not get the new fixture set that I need to have. However, if he works late, he returns home to an irritating wife who is longing for his attention. I'm egocentric in our union, and I recognize that." However, her frustration turned into boiling anger over time, as one day, Jonna decided to confront David and question him about all the hours he was spending outside of home and as to why he didn't want to spend quality time with his family. However, this is where things took a turn. You see, Jonna did chores in order to keep her mind off her growing anger and disappointment. It gave her a sense of control, and that kept her centered. While this didn't completely fix things, it played a major role. One day, Jonna was doing the laundry as usual. She was separating their clothes into different piles in order to be neatly folded and kept. This is where Jonna's perspectiveness kicked in, as she noticed something strange that she failed to notice back then. Why did my garments look lively, sparkling and new? His were filthy, stained and worn out. This was what she asked herself when she was doing laundry, according to a blog post from Jonna. She recalled how they went clothes shopping together on many occasions. What she had failed to notice is how he had not been purchasing new clothes for himself. He spent his hard-earned cash only to purchase clothes for her and their daughter. This realization took hold of Jonna as she started to look back at her feelings for David. After thinking things through, Jonna started feeling guilty about wanting to confront David regarding his time at the job, as it was suddenly so clear as to why he spends all that time at work in the first place. It suddenly became obvious to her that she married a loving, responsible man. After all, David was somebody who was doing everything that he can to provide for his family. David never came home in a bad mood, and he was always filled with glee when he saw his daughter after a hard day's work. After a heart-to-heart between the two, David had promised to try to be around the family more often. Today, we learned a very wholesome lesson from this wonderful account from David and Jonna's life. Instead of jumping into conclusions, it is always best to ask your loved ones whether you are in doubt. Jonna ended her story with some words of wisdom for her many followers. To quote, "If you have an industrious man in your life, but you can't understand to what extent he loves you, perform his laundry." For more wholesome, extraordinary stories like this, subscribe to our channel and press that bell button to get an update every single time we upload a new video. Make sure to like this video and share it with somebody who you think could use this advice. Thanks for watching, and see you all next time.